Hello and welcome to Your World Tonight. I'm Aisha Sindhu. In our special focus, the Madras High Court has asked why the body of former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalithaa can't be exhumed. This even as Sasikala Natarajan has been named the ruling party AIADMK's new chief. We will get into the specifics of those updates from Tamil Nadu in a bit. First up, here are the headlines. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley presents demonetization report card, says direct and indirect tax revenue has increased significantly. PM Modi expected to address the nation on New Year's Eve. The Madras High Court asks if Jayalalitha's body should be exhumed to probe the reasons for her death. Her party, the AIADMK, chooses former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister's longtime aide, Sasikala Natarajan, as its new leader. Fault lines deepen in the ruling Samajwadi Party in India's biggest state, Uttar Pradesh. Chief Minister Akhilesh complains to party chief Mulayam Singh after his nominees are dropped from the ticket list. Newly appointed Indian Olympic Association Life President Abhay Chautala says ready to give up position if International Olympic Committee has reservations over it. And the Syrian government and rebels sign a ceasefire agreement starting December 30th. Syrian army to halt all military operations. Obama administration set to impose further sanctions on Russia in response to allegations of Russian hacking. Russia says any such action would hit ties. It's been 50 days of demonetization in India and the queues outside banks are finally getting shorter. Prime Minister Modi is scheduled to address the nation and announce measures to ease the cash crunch further. Here's a report.
To break the grip of corruption and black money, we have decided that the 500 rupee and 1000 rupee currency notes presently in use will no longer be legal tender.
4 days after that bold and sudden announcement, the Indian Prime Minister fought back tears as he defended his decision to demonetize the 500 and 1000 rupee notes. Now, 50 days later, Modi is set to address the nation again at 7:30 p.m. India time on Saturday. The Indian Prime Minister is expected to speak of the reasons why he took that decision, the pain that the country had to bear to ensure its success, and of what was achieved. Government ministers have already gone on an overdrive defending the move.
There is a very significant increase in indirect taxation. In the central indirect taxes, the increase is 26.2%.
I don't find any slump in the entertainment sector.
The government's campaign is aimed at blunting the opposition's criticism that demonetization was done without proper preparation, that it caused hardships to the common man, even while bringing no real gain in the fight against black money. The Congress has planned countrywide protests on January 6th.
क्या मोदी जी ये नहीं चाहते कि लोगों को अपनी कमाई का पैसा अपने खाते में जमा करवाने का संपूर्ण अधिकार मिले? क्या मोदी जी की जबान की अब कोई कीमत नहीं रही? क्या हर रोज जबान बदलना कपड़े बदलनों की तरह मोदी जी के चरित्र का हिस्सा बन गई है? देश ये जानना चाहता है.
With the first part of the campaign ending, the government is now strongly countering the opposition. A 60-page document has been distributed to government departments describing each aspect of demonetization. All ministries have been asked to hold mass contact programs on demonetization. The Prime Minister is now expected to announce SOPs to ease the cash crunch and people's hardship. Bureau Report, WION.
WION's chief domestic correspondent Kartikeya Sharma joins us for more on that story. Kartikeya, what exactly are you expecting to hear in the Prime Minister's speech? Right, let me just check. Kartikeya, can you hear me? Okay, we're going to try and re-establish contact with Kartikeya Sharma, but just to sort of recap what's going on as far as demonetization goes, the December 30th deadline is upon India for the return of the currency notes that have been made illegal tender, and the Prime Minister of the country, Narendra Modi, is expected to speak to the nation in a New Year's Eve address, most likely on demonetization and the kind of steps that the government is planning on taking to ease the people's problems. Let's go across to WION's chief domestic correspondent, Kartikeya Sharma, who joins us for more. Kartikeya, to repeat, I did ask, what do you expect to hear in terms of the Prime Minister's speech scheduled for New Year's Eve?
I think the Prime Minister is not going to end his speech on what he has done. I think the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to talk about what he intends to do in 2017. Going by the nature of the Prime Minister, I think it's going to be a surprising speech. For example, no one expected on November 8th that it's going to be demonetization. So my sense is that the Prime Minister, apart from talking about incentivization and the conclusion of the demonetization drive, he's also going to speak about the way larger structures of finance are going to be reformed and rationalized. I think that's the way the speech of the Prime Minister is going to go. And if you go by the speech of the Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, I think it gives you that undertone in a very subtle way, in an implicit way, because ultimately the explicit pronunciation of it would rest on the shoulders of the Prime Minister.
Right, Kartikeya, in terms of the government's plans on releasing or reducing the pain being suffered by the people, how do you think that they're planning on plugging that gap between the increase in withdrawal limits and the lack of currency notes?
I said that's a very nice question. I think that's where the problem is, because the banks have already written to the Prime Minister saying that he should not take away the ability of the people to derive more money from the banks. Banks are of the view that if you ask the people, if you give the power to the people to take away all the money they have in the banks, it will create a liquidity crunch. So the Prime Minister will really have to walk a very fine balance between what the people would do and what the banks want him to do. And bank says that he should limit the currency withdrawal, and I think that will be the biggest takeaway, Aisha.
Right, Kartikeya Sharma, thanks so much for joining us with those details. I guess it's wait and watch to see how exactly the government plans on reducing the pressure on banks in terms of those new currency notes. We're going to move on to another big story. The countdown to elections in the bellwether state of Indian politics is getting more interesting. Knives are out in the ruling Samajwadi Party in Uttar Pradesh over the issue of ticket distribution. There's even talk of a possible split in the party ahead of those crucial polls. The Chief Minister Akhilesh Yadav has objected to the ticket list announced by Party Supremo Mulayam Singh Yadav. The list, in which names of over 50 sitting MLAs were dropped, was announced by Mulayam and his brother Shivpal in the absence of Akhilesh on Wednesday. Now, reports are telling us that out of the 325 names announced by Mulayam, only 218 tally with the panel submitted by Akhilesh to the Samajwadi Party chief. Amift Akhilesh met his supporters and legislators who were left out and is reported to have conveyed his concerns to his father, Mulayam Singh Yadav. Political commentator and senior journalist Kalyani Shankar joins us on the phone line right now. Ms. Shankar, thanks so much for speaking with us here on WION. The rift in the Samajwadi Party seems to have resurfaced. Who do you think stands to gain most in this situation?
Well, you see, if you ask me, union is strength. If they contest separately, it's going to harm both sides. So, in my opinion, I think somehow or other, both parties will try to see till the last minute how to come to some understanding or some formula which can be sort of pleasing to, in an election, it's always, you can never please everybody. So there is always a give and take, and maybe, and after all, Mulayam Singh still is considered as a Netaji, and even Akhilesh has always been saying that he will listen to his father. So right from the beginning, the whole fight since it started a few months ago, it has always been aimed at who will get the major share of seats. So that is already happening today. So that no wonder that both sides are stretching to the limit. But in my opinion, they will patch up at the last minute, and then they will fight together, and ultimately the compromise could be that Akhilesh should be made the chief minister candidate, and then they will give some of his followers tickets, and that's how probably, it's my logical understanding.
Right.
But
so
still, they may go wrong. They might split the party, and Akhilesh might launch his own party, but it doesn't help either of them.
Right. Ms. Shankar, you're saying that perhaps they might just bring a surprise on the opposition by patching up right before those crucial polls. But if, let's say, that doesn't happen, and if Akhilesh is not the chief minister's face, then who do you think Mulayam Singh or Netaji is envisaging for that post?
Well, you see, right from the beginning of this present fight, which has been going on for the past 4 or 5 months, there has been rumors that Shupal Yadav, the brother of Mulayam Singh, was, feeling unhappy that he was not given the chief ministership earlier. So right now he was trying to get that position. So that was why he had been, rebelling against Mulayam Singh, and now Mulayam Singh seems to have sort of humored his brother. So if Akhilesh Singh is not there, I think the natural choice of Mulayam Singh would be Shupal Singh Yadav. But how far that can happen, whether Shupal doesn't have a good image, whereas Akhilesh has a good image. For all the things people say that he's done good work, and also they say he's a good man. So between the two, I think definitely Akhilesh stands to gain more. But then if he is out, then probably Shupal will be the choice of SP. But I don't see that happening. I don't think that Mulayam will let go his son. After all, you see, the father's love for son is more than anything else.
Right.
You might have seen in politics all through. So, after all, he made him as his successor even while he is alive. So I don't see that happening. But anyway, you can never know. Politics is very strange,
Yeah. All right. So maybe family will trump any sort of politics as well. We'll have to wait and watch on that one. But Kalyani Shankar there, thanks so much for joining us with your inputs on that developing story that we will, of course, track on WION. But the big story from South India now. In a major observation made by the Madras High Court, the judge has asked if former Tamil Nadu Chief Minister Jayalalitha's body can be exhumed. The court has issued a notice to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, state and central governments, as well as others. Not happy with the secrecy maintained by people around Jayalalithaa, who was declared dead on the 5th of December after 75 days in hospital, a vacation bench of the court said even they have their doubts about what took place. Jayalalithaa was buried at the MGR Memorial on the Marina Beach on 6th of December. Pointing out that no revenue division officer had seen the body, neither were there any medical records furnished, the bench asked, and I quote, "Why not? At least after her death, some proof was given," unquote. Kunal Shankar joins us right now. He is a journalist with Frontline. Kunal, thanks so much for speaking with us here on WION. How big is the sentiment on the ground that something is awry with regards to Jayalalitha's death? Or is this just the sentiment that we're seeing representative only a few disgruntled people?
Well, actually, see, what's important here to note is that this is a petition in the Madras High Court at a time when the not just the AIADMK but Tamil Nadu in general as a state is going through a major political transition, and that is really one of the reasons why this petition has gained traction. It's important to note that this was a vacation bench, which means normally the courts function, they have a winter break, and there are very few courts that function at the high courts. And this judge, that is the lead judge here, is S. Vaidyanathan and Justice Parthiban, who are the judges here. They have really not passed any orders, but they've made observations as to whether it is appropriate that such secrecy was maintained about an democratically elected head of the executive of a state who holds a constitutional authority, and as to whether this was in keeping with not just good politics but good governance.
Right.
That's really the issue here, not so much as to whether she was given the adequate care or the best quality of care that was required. That is, in fact, not really the, even the question that needs to be discussed. As to whether this sentiment exists on the ground, there are several who have questioned the way, the way information was very sort of secretively, sometimes leaked, sometimes not at all given, or came in bits and pieces, and the very fact that there were other constitutional authorities like the governor and other members of parliament who came from Delhi,
right,
could not meet the chief minister. These are issues that need wider consultation, wider discussion in general as to what happens when a person holding public office is incapacitated the way the chief minister was incapacitated. This is actually a constitutional lacuna in India as to what happens when something like this happens, because we don't have the practice of having immediately appointing or having a deputy that comes kicks in immediately when something like this happens.
Okay, so there are bigger implications from that development. But Kunal, stay with us because we're also going to give our viewers another bit of information coming out of Tamil Nadu, that the long-time aide of Ms. Jayalalithaa, Sasikala, is all set to become the interim General Secretary of the AIADMK. It will give her overarching power within the party, but as always, there are caveats. Kartikeya Sharma with this report.
Finally, Chennamma appears to have come into her own. After silent decades at Jayalalitha's side, Sasikala Natarajan is all set to become ADMK General Secretary. A party resolution said, in tune with party rules, Honorable Chennamma is appointed ADMK General Secretary, and a resolution to this effect has been adopted unanimously by the General Council. But it came with a caveat that the position was conditional on her getting elected. So the formal promotion to General Secretary will happen only later. Reports hinted she may prefer to keep the General Secretary's post vacant and take on some other party avatar. The opposition DMK saw an opportunity to score a political point.
Behind Sasikala Pushpa, I don't think there is any political party. It was she who was single-handedly fighting everything. She has, even when Jayalalithaa was here as the Prime Minister, as the Chief Minister, she waged a lone battle.
For somebody who ran a video shop to make a living, Sasikala has travelled far. She's clearly leveraged her long years with Jayalalithaa. It is alleged that her relatives from the powerful Thevar community virtually dominate the party.
This is an internal problem of a party, and it is up to them to resolve that. Who is to be the General Secretary, who is not to be the General Secretary, is to be decided by in a democratic way. And fighting in the state is not going to solve the problem for any party.
But Sasikala is unlikely to have smooth path to power. Within the party, there are probably many who resent her rise. There is also the fact that sitting Chief Minister, Selvam, enjoys a good rapport with the BJP. Sasikala's appointment has not settled the power play in the state of Tamil Nadu. For the first time in ADMK's history, the position of the Chief Minister will not be held by the General Secretary of the party. And if the signals from the CM's office are to be believed, it seems that Selvam has begun to take his job seriously. Kartikeya Sharma for WION.
Let's go back to frontline journalist Kunal Shankar, who joins us right now to talk more about that development. Kunal, Sasikala has no administrative experience. She's never held a post within the AIADMK. What sort of sway do you think she will have over the party?
Well, that really is the big question, and not just the fact that she doesn't have any political sway, for that matter, rather any administrative experience. It's the fact that she lacks the charisma, if you will, of a leader of a standing like Jayalalithaa. In Tamil Nadu, the stardom of a politician, if you will, especially in the past 40 years, has been very important. Since the rise of the Dravidian parties, it has been an era of flowery speeches, great speech writers, spontaneous orators, much of which Jayalalithaa herself embodied. She rose as the propaganda secretary of the AIADMK. She was very articulate in several languages. She was a first-time Rajya Sabha member of Parliament and proved herself to be to be quite worthy. It's another matter whether one accepted her politics or not, but everyone everyone took her to be someone as a serious politician very quickly because she proved her mettle soon after MGR's death 29 years ago.
Right.
Whether Sasikala really has those capabilities is really what is at question, and I would hazard a guess that that is not something that she has, and it would be quite hard for her to rein in the party, the larger cadre, or rather the tentacles of the party in the entire state intact right now. Although having said that, it is also a time when the party has 4 years ahead to rule the state. They have a comfortable majority. It is definitely thinner than what it was from the last time. They suffered a setback because of the heavy criticism against them in the handling of the Chennai rains.
Right.
But in fact, this time around, right after Cyclone Varda, they have been commended for having learned from last year's mistakes. So if you look at it administratively also, there are several schemes that have been much lauded by the chief minister.
Sure.
So it is the state machinery, the political executive is very aware of the fact that the next 4 years are in their hands, and they wouldn't want to lose this opportunity to rule the state. So there is a sentiment that runs within the party that it is best not to break it, rather to try and find at least a stopgap arrangement where the functioning of the party will go on smoothly for the next 4 years.
Okay.
And in that arrangement, probably Sasikala fits in the larger scheme of things.
Okay, Kunal, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let you go on that note. We're running out of time on the program, got some other stories we have to look at, but some pertinent points being brought up about Sasikala and perhaps the lack of wow factor that she might have, but we'll have to see how exactly that plays out in Tamil Nadu. Thanks so much for joining us, though, on the program.
Thank you.
Right. Under intense pressure, Abhay Chautala has offered to relinquish the life presidency of the Indian Olympic Association only if the International Olympic Committee tells him to do so. This comes a day after Suresh Kalmadi refused to accept the honorary post. Both Chautala and Kalmadi are charge-sheeted in the 2010 CWG corruption scandal. In a long press release, Chautala thanked the IOA for honouring him and defended his appointment by saying it is constitutionally a legitimate decision and emphasised that these are honorary posts and no executive authority will be given to him or Kalmadi. All right, we've got Shagun Chaudhary, shooter, joining us on the phone line right now. Also here with us is Arjuna Awardee Mansher Singh, and also a four-time Olympian. Shagun and Mansher, thanks for joining us. And I'll come to you first, Shagun. How offended are you as an athlete that the Indian Olympic Association decided to go with these two tainted men, even if it were for an honorary post?
You know, Aisha, it's quite shocking that after the whole fiasco in 2010 for the Commonwealth Games, when it was publicly said that so many crores were basically, being siphoned off in his name, that we still had a unanimous decision of 150 people who unanimously elected him. I mean, it was a blot on us, even internationally. There's a CBI case running, which is still pending against him, and we go ahead and we still, even though it's an honorary post or whatever he might not have, but we still give him that sort of dignity, which he stripped us of. So I'm absolutely shocked.
Right. Mansher, would you agree? Is this, the fact that this is an honorary post is actually, ignorable. But the fact that they have gone ahead and chosen these two people, is it offensive to you as an athlete? And what really needs to be done to make sure that, more sports persons are involved in the governing of sport within India? Manshir, if you can hear me very quickly, if you can tell us what more do you think needs to be done in terms of avoiding situations like this where, the entire sports fraternity almost gets a bad name because of the functioning of sports bodies that have nothing really, no one really running these bodies who have actual sports experience.
So, you're right. It does create a sort of a sense of ill will amongst the sporting community itself when they see these kind of decisions happening. We would have really welcomed a decision like, I feel that like an Abhinav Bindra being elected as the honorary president of the IOA to help and guide them, because they seriously need that help after the mess of Rio 2000, which is last Olympics, where we saw India win only 2 medals and how badly the IOA was prepared for those Olympics. You need as much help as possible from sportsmen and from technical people to appoint live presidents for the sake of possibly elections and terms ending. That in itself it shows that you're really not seriously wanting to address the deep concerns that Indian sports is facing. The IOA has always been an association which passes the buck off, never really trains or helps athletes at going to the Olympics. They think it's the government's job to do so, and sports federations pretty much do the same thing as well. This is what needs to change. There has to be a new thinking. I really would hope that the government of India takes it up seriously and forces these federations as well as the IOA to fall in line and start looking towards the betterment of Indian sport, and not just for their own, for their own personal needs.
Right, it is time for this cozy club culture to be dropped if Indian sport is to go where it is intended to go. There is no dearth of talent as has been displayed at both the CWG Games and of course multiple editions of the Olympics that we've seen. Manshir Singh and Shagun Chaudhary, thanks so much for joining us and speaking your minds really on this issue. We really appreciate you taking out the time to speak to us here on Your World Tonight. But I am totally out of time on that note. We're going to have to wrap up the bulletin on that. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with more news and updates on the other side of this short break.